Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. And I'd like to introduce Anita. Miss Anita Krishna, she's actually zooming in from Vancouver. She is a veteran in media for the past 10 plus years. She was the global news director. And I like to use this phrase, courage means going against majority opinion in the name of the truth. She did just that. And she's now an independent broadcaster and media producer. I'd like to give the floor to Miss Krishna.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to speak. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to get to know some of you. I feel I'm just thrilled at what's happened in my life since being fired. It's been probably the best thing that's ever happened. But like Candace said, I've been working in TV news for like over 20 years, but mainly I had a technical position. So of course I know about news gathering and how things work editorially, but I was a director. So basically I cut the cameras, and whatever you were watching on the 6 o'clock news, that was my job to put that on television. It was just to execute technically, right? So that I did for many, many years. Also lately, part of my job was putting our provincial health officer on television day in, day out for hours. So that was also became part of my job too. And I think that's what sent me over the edge, because no one could listen to that for as many hours as I had to listen to that. But I just want to say, because we're talking about learning in higher education and university, it's been many years now since I've been to university. I mentioned this to Denis and Julie before, but I went to Ryerson from 93 to 96. And I had the time of my life there. Even looking back now, I loved what I learned. I loved what we were doing. So I got a bachelor's of applied arts in radio and television. So we learned all the technical things, how to work the cameras, how to cut in the studio, how to edit, how to copyright, and all that kind of thing. But then we also had a portion of our program that was liberal arts. So we were taking literature, philosophy, African studies, and just all kinds of different things. And I thought that made for such an amazing, comprehensive education. I really, really enjoyed it. So I have nothing but good things to say about how university was for me back then. I hear a lot of problems today, that there's numerous problems where you are not free to even learn, is what it sounds like to me, that cultivating your thoughts, how you feel about certain topics, you always seems like students have to be so careful and so cautious every step of the way. And how does that help you learn? I don't know. That's not like an environment for learning. It sounds like you're being quite oppressed and unable to think freely. So how are you going to develop critical thinkers if you're constantly on them, or if they constantly feel paralyzed by making the wrong move? I don't think that I even worried about being canceled. That wasn't even a thing back in our day. So I was never restricted by that. What was I going to get canceled from? I was a nobody. I was just going to school. But now you're going to be canceled, or somebody's going to be mad at you because what, you held a door open for somebody? Are we not allowed to do that? Like, I'm a woman. If I hold the door open for another woman, that's okay. If I hold it open for a man, that's okay. So don't worry about these things so much, right? I don't know. And also, it made me think back to when I was a child, and I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but things were sort of gender confused sometimes back then too, but we didn't worry about it. Like when we saw Annie Lennox, we just thought she was cool. She was sort of androgynous. She's cool. David Bowie was a superstar. I had a big crush on him. And look at him. He's very androgynous. And then Boy George came. We didn't know what the heck he was, but we didn't care. And we didn't make a big deal about things. And sometimes if you make such a big deal about things, you're putting importance on things that don't matter. It doesn't matter. You just take people as they come and move on. That's what I would say. But I did a story a couple of weeks ago, and I talked to these two young kids. They were 18 and 19. And I asked them, what was the hardest thing for you over the past 2 years? And they said and I thought they'd say something about COVID, not seeing their friends and yada, yada, but they said being woke was one of the hardest things for them, because they didn't know what to say. They felt paralyzed. And you're not going to create that strong spirit if you're paralyzing young people like that. What is that? If that person is always second guessing what they're going to do because you're making them feel unsure, that is not, you're not creating a leader of tomorrow. You're creating someone that doesn't know what to do. And on top of that, if you're masking that individual for no good reason, you're creating another harmful effect for young people today who think, well, I'll just put my mask on, I won't say anything. Well, no, I think that's completely wrong. But anyway, so yes, my education, I loved it. And I felt like it gave me the skills to go forward in my industry. And so my industry was broadcasting and I enjoyed it. I loved it for all the years that I did it. And the way that I do it now, I still love it. And a lot of people sometimes say to me, you know, like, oh, the media, you've always been terrible. You know, you've been terrible. Think about 9/11 and all this. And then I'm like, oh, were we terrible? I guess maybe there's a lot of things that happened that maybe I wasn't aware of. But when COVID happened, you would have to be an absolute zombie, brain dead individual to not see what we were doing to people in society. And everything that was done to people, your lack of not being able to make a medical choice for yourself, you can blame the media for that because we took that choice away from you. We made you feel like whatever medical choice you take, well, you selfish person, you're going to make someone else sick. And so we did that to people. That messaging came from the media. It came from us. It came from our broadcast. It came from, I can certainly say that I put many, many shows to air demonizing people, condemning the unvaccinated, making people hate one another, dividing everybody. That was us. That was global television, CBC, CTV in this country. We did that to you. So if you want to make a medical choice, we took that away from you. We convinced everybody that you were harming everybody. And then we threw you out of your job that you'd been at for 20 years. And then we had convinced everybody, that's okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, you should have taken that shot. And you should have taken another shot. And now you need a booster. And go ahead, get a fourth one too. Like, we've made that okay, if that's completely our fault. And I can tell you from working in newsrooms, whatever was going on, like if you brought up anything like, hey, you're telling me this virus came from Wuhan? Well, did you know there's a lab in Wuhan that studies bat coronaviruses? They do gain of function research. If you go around telling people that in the newsroom, like I did, you know, people look at you like you're absolutely lost your, like, it's like I had said Mickey Mouse had started the virus. That's how people laughed at me. People shut me up. People shunned me, right? If I talked about hydroxychloroquine, oh, well, I was in love with Donald Trump. So shut up. Basically, I was told to be quiet. No matter what I brought up there, if I brought up ivermectin, if I said something like, hey, well, did you hear about ivermectin and that this could work? No, Anita, no, it's debunked. I mean, no matter what I said, I was given emails from my boss saying, Anita, could you please stop talking about COVID? It's like, what? That's all you've been talking about for 2 years, you morons, or whatever. And I'm telling you, the people in the newsroom knew nothing about science, knew nothing about medication, knew nothing about the facts of what was really going on, yet they were the ones driving the narrative. And they are the ones that ruined everybody's life. That's what I have to say about that. From what I can see, they were misinformed, uneducated, peddling an agenda. And I have only just realized now, well, I didn't know at the time, but we were paid to do so. We took that bailout money. We are never going to ever air a story that will show you an ounce of vaccine hesitancy, no matter how many people you know that have died and become injured. We will never tell that story. And that's what's happened. So all I can say is something so vile and nefarious has happened to us in society. I feel like I'm in a movie. I can't even comprehend that these institutions that I used to trust have defied us and lied to us the way that they have, but they have. And if you speak out against that, bye-bye, off you go. No EI, no severance, no nothing. Get out of here. fine. All right. I don't care then. I'll go work in a store, but I would do anything rather than peddle your crap anymore. And so that is the definition, I guess, of fascism. If you're living in a fascist state, if you work in a newsroom, a mainstream media newsroom, you better be prepared to go along with the fascism or you are gone. And I'm not the only one, you know, there's others. And I'll do a story on another guy that got fired, but I'll tell you about him some other time. But yeah, that's what's happened. So it's very sad. And I think you know, for someone like Candace not being allowed on at her own university, like as if you're a criminal or a leper, is disgusting. And I would advise anybody listening, don't ever listen to what your public health official has to say to you. If you're masking in Ontario, you better stand up and fight against that, because if you don't do that now, you are going to be crushed under their thumbs, and you are going to be listening to people that do not have your best interest in mind. And on that cheery note, that's all I have to say. So I'll end it there, but yeah.
Anita, because of the field that you're coming from, we've come into this era of so-called misinformation and disinformation, new language, new ideas for some of us, and it's not even clear what that misinformation or disinformation really is. In your view, how should we promote freedom of speech and ensure the pursuit of truth?
Start telling the truth. We don't even tell you the truth. We read off a piece of paper. The public health official just reads things at you and then shows you some modeling data that doesn't make any sense and says, shut down your church. That's what she does. With no public hearing, no discourse, no voting, no referendum on any of these choices. It's absolute garbage. And I would say freedom of speech, why is that something that's even taken away from us in the first place? How did we even come to that where we're so scared to say things? Why are you so scared to say things all the time? Why are you so scared to say, I don't really want this vaccine? It's only been used in humans since 2020. Get this away from me. Can I have time to think about this? No. Well, isn't that ridiculous? I would say don't be so scared moving around society, tiptoeing over yourself to try to be polite. Be nice, be kind, don't be insulting, be warm, be friendly, but certainly say what you have to say. Don't worry. Everybody's so worried about getting canceled. Who cares? You'll come up again. You know, you get canceled. It's like whack-a-mole. You'll rise up somewhere else. Don't worry about it.
Thank you, Anita.